That was our Lorna Shattuck from Moscow. To learn more about the crash in Egypt and airline safety in general, I spoke with Seth Kaplan. He's a managing partner at Airline Weekly. I asked him about the history of the Airbus A321 and the airline in question.
I mean, this is an extraordinarily reliable aircraft, a member of the A320 family. The 321, actually a less common version. Basically, there are three rather common versions, the 3, 19, 20, and 21. And basically, in size order, the 321 is the largest of them. And when you go back in history, there weren't all that many. They've actually become more popular in recent years. But yeah, hard to find any example of a 321 going down, causing fatalities where it didn't end up being, some sort of human error involved. In terms of anything mechanical with the aircraft, a very, very good operating record.
Looking at the likely causes now, we have word reports that the pilot radioed to make an emergency landing, saying he was having some kind of equipment problems. We know they found at least one of the black boxes. What will that mean, and what will investigators be poring over at this point, trying to glean from that information?
Yeah, and the first thing will be to know, which of the black boxes they found, the voice or the data recorder. Once we know that, we can imagine what are some of the things that they'll listen for. But yeah, that's the initial indication, some sort of a technical issue without knowing much more yet. Gosh, obviously a huge array of things that could come into play. We know that apparently no bad weather, for example, in the area. That was something when you think of more recent disasters with A320 family aircraft. There was the AirAsia disaster last year. That was an A320, again, just sort of a slightly smaller version than this one. There right away, we knew that there was that bad weather in the area, and it later sort of seemed that there was some combination of that and pilot error that caused the accident. Here, nothing like that. So, without knowing something else, it seems to have happened rather suddenly, and yet not so sudden that the pilots didn't know something was wrong.
Now, Seth, one thing that really jumped out at me, the fact that Russia has opened a criminal investigation against the airline. Now, is this normal procedure, or is this being done for a different reason that we just simply don't know at this point?
Yeah, well, we'll have to learn more, but it is handled differently in different countries, around the world. In the U.S., for example, it would be a civil investigation unless there was absolutely something jumping out saying otherwise, and that's the case in many countries. But even in a country like France, let's say, which in many respects is a lot like the U.S., it tends to be more of a criminal investigation until proven otherwise. And so yeah, it could, until we're told otherwise, it could be more a matter of semantics, that's just how they're beginning the investigation.
Now, we know this went down in a very rugged area, and about half the plane apparently was intact with passengers still strapped in, the other part burned up. And we know that terrorist groups are claiming responsibility for this. We know a shoulder-launched missile can't reach the height of 31,000 feet. What will authorities do to rule out the possibility of terrorism, the fact that they've already said, we don't think this is what happened, but what will they do from here on?
Right, and as you said, not a shoulder-launched missile, but of course, the first thing that everybody's going to think about is, Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 shot down over, by all appearances anyway, shot down over Ukraine. That would, of course, take a much more significant surface-to-air missile, and so that would be the sort of thing, if you have a part of the aircraft, for example, that's charred. Now we know that it apparently kept flying for some period of time after the pilots knew something was wrong, but that can happen. You can have some sort of impact with something that's not immediately so catastrophic that that all communication is lost.